Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We're just going to wait another minute just to let a few more people into the room, and then we'll begin. Okay, so I think we'll get started. So hello and welcome to our Drinking Water Wise webinar series. Today, our topic is Septic Systems 102, Inspections and Tertiary Systems. I'm your host, Jason Jobin from the Cataraqui Conservation. I also have with me today Trent, Marika, Natasha, and Thomas from Lower Trent, Rideau Valley, Quinte, and Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authorities. They will be helping in the background, moderating the chat, answering questions, and providing technical support if needed. So before we start, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. This webinar will be recorded and it will be available on YouTube shortly after this webinar is completed. All participants are muted, and we ask that your cameras remain off. If you do wish to participate in the webinar, we do have a Q&A function which you can use, and one of the panelists will address your question there, or we will do it afterwards. Other than that, if you're experiencing any sort of technical issues, please contact Marika Livingston at marika.livingston@mrsourcewater.ca. So today's agenda, first we will begin with an introduction to source water protection like we do all of our webinars. And this is primarily going to be focused on best practices for source water protection. And then we will welcome our special guests, Kelly Andrews and Mike Gibbs, to talk about septic systems. Then we will finish off with a Q&A section with some questions that were pre-submitted upon your registration, and then some from the chat if they aren't already answered within the presentation. So, drinking water source protection in Ontario. Ontario has a multi-barrier approach when it comes to protecting municipal drinking water from the source to the tap. The Clean Water Act in 2006 has several components within it that ensures that drinking water is safe for consumption. And this includes locally developed source protection plans and risk management services. Conservation authorities and several implementing bodies work together to develop and implement source protection plans and their policies. There's also resources for non-municipal drinking water systems called the best practices for source water protection. These are steps that you can take to protect your source of rural drinking water. So not all systems are protected by the multi-barrier approach in Ontario. Some residents have to rely on protecting their own sources of water. The best practices are voluntary guidance documents, which were developed by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, with the goal to aid in protecting drinking water sources that are not protected by the Clean Water Act and or a source protection plan. This document walks the reader through how to identify the vulnerability of their drinking water system, identify potential risks, and how to manage those risks to better protect your sources of drinking water. It includes useful information for private residents, municipalities, and other agencies and associations. At this time, one of my colleagues is going to put the link in the chat if they haven't already, so you can access that document yourself. So why are best practices important? The best practices were created because there's a gap in drinking water protection between people who receive municipal water and those who rely on private drinking water sources, such as a lake or river intake or a well. As you can see in the diagram on the left here, there are a number of steps, multi-barrier approaches that protect the water. You have water treatment, training, testing, etc. But on the right, these responsibilities fall to the landowner themselves to provide their own treatment and testing without being trained professionals. So why are these best practices actually important? Well, primarily we do this because we want to protect ourselves, we want to protect human health, but it's also for protecting the environment itself. It can also extend the life of your drinking water system, so there is a financial benefit to this as well. It can be quite expensive, a high cost to clean up a contaminated source, seek a new source of water, or just increasing the treatment needs if your system begins to break down. It also helps you make informed land use planning decisions on a personal or even a municipal level with building additions, septic tank locations, that sort of thing. And of course, it helps increase public awareness and accountability of drinking water stewardship since rural landowners often share the same source of drinking water. So there are a number of things that you can do as a owner of a drinking water source. One of the things you can do is test your water regularly. You can get these testing kits for free at Public Health Ontario locations. They test for E. coli and coliforms, which are two of the main concerns when it comes to private drinking water systems. You can create an inventory of potential contamination activities in your area. You can also implement a buffer zone. So municipal systems have a buffer zone where certain activities are prohibited near the well. So for example, you might not want to spread manure directly above your well. You should be visually inspecting your well and your septic system at least annually. And septic systems obviously change depending on where you are and what your situation is, but we recommend generally that you pump them out every 3 to 5 years. And you can also use eco-friendly alternatives when it comes to solvents and soaps, that sort of thing. One thing a lot of people don't think about is conserving water when possible. Protecting your water source doesn't just come down to conserving the water quality, but also the quantity of water, especially with climate change. You can dispose of hazardous wastes at appropriate locations. You can regularly inspect your fuel storage as well as install double wall tanks. And if you have a waterfront property, you can keep a shoreline buffer of vegetation to reduce runoff, protect the water, and also protect your property from eroding into the water itself. So this concludes our short discussion on best practices. And now we're going to turn over to our guest speakers. Our guest speakers are Kelly Anders and Mike Gibbs. Kelly is our first speaker. She is an action-oriented leader with over 20 years of experience in administration and accounting as the executive director of the Ontario Onsite Wastewater Association, or OOWA. She is responsible for overseeing the strategic direction, operational management, and growth of the organization. Kelly will introduce us to septic systems and their regulations, and then she's going to pass it off to Mike, who is a member of the board of directors of the Ontario Onsite Wastewater Association. Mike will speak about advanced treatment units and inspections. On top of that, Mike is also a project manager with ESSE Canada. They provide advanced treatment unit maintenance and real estate transaction inspections, in addition to capacity assessments, repairs, and system design. Mike has worked for environmental NGOs in the outdoor adventure travel industry, wherein he strengthened his love of the natural world and grew interest in protecting freshwater resources. During his time at OOWA, Mike got to know the on-site and decentralized industry very well, and also learned a great deal about how septic systems operate, fail, and are installed properly, and how they can also treat and manage wastewater in a way that protects the environment and human health. Okay, and now we'll stop sharing and pass it off to our speakers.
Thank you, Jason. I'm gonna wait to share my screen here.
Just one moment. There you are.
Okay. All right, so yes, thank you for the introduction. We appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I just would like to start by saying the information provided in today's webinar is not intended to convey legal advice. While care has been taken to ensure accuracy, readers must refer to the Ontario Building Code or other authorizations for the most up-to-date and accurate information. So as mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about UA and ESSE and then go through regulations, ATUs, maintenance, inspections, and troubleshooting today. So who is UA? So in a nutshell, we are a provincial not-for-profit organization that represents those who work in the on-site sewage system industry. We have a network of engaged industry representatives that make up our board of directors and volunteer committees. We are a hub of knowledge and a sense of community for all industry professionals. In essence, we are committed to establishing and maintaining a high professional standard in the administration of Part 8 of the Ontario Building Code. Our membership is very diverse, from folks who are on the ground installing septic systems and maintaining them, to those who engineer their designs, and academics that conduct research on the science behind septic systems. We also have those that regulate their safe installation and maintenance, and manufacturers, suppliers, precasters, and so on. For our mission, we promote the benefit of on-site and decentralized wastewater management. How do we do that? We influence provincial policy by maintaining a trusted relationship with ministry to help protect Ontario's freshwater resources and ensure public health. We deliver events that provide networking, education and training, and other opportunities. We produce newsletters, guidance documents, and other information resources that keep our members up to date and educated on uniform practices. We also educate the public on septic systems, their viability, and the importance of maintenance and care, as we are here to do today. Mike.
Yeah. So ESSE is a family-run business. We're based out of Brantford, which is where our main office is. We have a stable of some really experienced, qualified, and competent technicians who we literally go all over the province to service and maintain advanced treatment units. We do standard systems as well. And like was mentioned up at the top, we do inspections for real estate transactions and for a whole host of other reasons as well. So yeah, we have a very dedicated team. We have guys on our crew that have degrees in environmental studies and environmental science. So that's a strong anchor to the focus of the business and the motivation of our staff as well. Yeah, I think that encapsulates. I think that's got everything. Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit about regulations around septic systems. So septic systems with a daily flow calculation of less than 10,000 liters per day are regulated by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, or the MMAH, through Part 8 of the Ontario Building Code. The OBC, so Ontario Building Code OBC, the OBC prescribes approved design and construction requirements for septic systems and determines who may do what. So that includes the licensing of installers, designers, and inspectors. Permitting and inspection authorities for Part 8 of the OBC can be health units, conservation authorities, or municipal building departments. These primary authorities may deliver discretionary reinspection programs of existing systems to identify functionality and determine if any of them are failing. The application process and requirements are going to differ from region to region, but the general steps remain the same. So you'd find out who has jurisdiction, the health unit, conservation authority, or municipality. Contact them and get a septic system application. That would include all the details about their procedures. Some regulatory authorities will use paper and pen, whereas some may use an online permitting system such as Cloud Permit. You use your application as a guide to determine what information you may need to complete it. So this may include information like property description, plan, lot, sublot, municipal address, designer and or installer information, fixture counts and stuff in the house, locations of wells and structures, soil evaluation information, and lots more. So we recommend that you hire a professional installer, designer, or engineer to file your application, because there is so much detail that goes into it. The building code sets minimum tank sizes horizontal setbacks, vertical separations, loading rates, etc. It requires that your system be certain distances away from wells, structures, lot lines, and water courses, because effluent is going to make it back to the groundwater. Although there is not a setback for it, trees, shrubs, and gardens are recommended to be 6 meters or more away from the bed. So you'll see in this diagram that the setbacks from a water body is 15 meters. Drilled wells require 15 meters as well, whereas dug wells require 30 meters. Most other setbacks from the leaching bed are 5 meters, and then from the tank are 1.5 meters. I'll mention that there are some circumstances, rare circumstances, when separation distances might be increased. So this might be done through bylaws in a municipality. It's always recommended to verify with your local authority what the setbacks are. So advanced treatment units. It may be determined that the lot size is too small for a conventional system, or the soils don't meet the requirements. This is where the option for an advanced treatment unit or an ATU comes in. Other times one might consider an ATU is if you're building on hard to access properties, extending the life of an existing leaching bed, or simply wanting to add additional protection for your groundwater. Advanced treatment units are on-site systems that provide enhanced treatment beyond the level of treatment provided by a conventional septic system. This makes them ideal for smaller lots and for properties where development may be constrained by tight setbacks to wells, property lines, or existing structures. The advanced systems available on the market today can be approved under what's called CAN-B&Q 3680-600 or the Building Materials Evaluation Commission, or BMEC. Listed on this slide here are the systems that are approved under CAN-B&Q in Ontario. The choice of system for your property will depend on various factors, such as site conditions, setbacks, soil analysis and everything, as well as contractor preference. So these systems are typically tanks which hold a type of media, some air pumps, or both. In a nutshell, beneficial types of bacteria attach themselves to the media, where they grow in large numbers by consuming the harmful organic elements of the sewage, thus polishing the effluent. This process of bacterial growth may be accelerated by the use of aeration pumps that introduce appropriate amounts of oxygen to facilitate bacterial growth and longevity. Many of these treatment units are placed after a septic tank, but some have integrated pre-treatment tanks which can replace a septic tank if needed. The treatment which happens in the tanks breaks down the effluent to the point that it looks like clean water. This can be done through a combination of settling, aeration, and filtration, and many of the treatment units also have nitrogen reduction built in. Because the effluent is so clean coming out of the treatment units, there are more options for the final treatment stage, which is a soil absorption system. Options can be a reduced size conventional leaching bed, a type A bed if the approval for the unit exists, or a shallow buried trench. So BMEC approved systems combine treatment and dispersal together in the leaching bed. The units are placed evenly throughout a specified sand area. The number of units needed in each bed is defined in their BMEC approval and is based on their daily design flow. Like the CAN-B&Q systems, BMEC systems require less space for the final stage of treatment. Feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything. So as with level 4 treatment technologies, there are several options available for BMEC systems. So a pressure distribution system delivers doses of effluent to a leaching bed, forcing it along the entire length of the lateral, and then sprays it upwards where it hits the chamber and trickles down into the soil. Or there are pipes or modules that support aerobic bacterial growth to biologically treat nutrients and contaminants. Or you have systems that use different filtering mediums within the distribution pipe system. Again, what you choose will depend on factors such as site conditions, cost, and contractor or personal preference. ATUs can have numerous mechanical elements, including pumps, blowers, and compressors, which also means that an electrical control panel is required. These systems will have alarms to notify homeowners of any potential problems. Alarms will trigger a beacon light and or a buzzing noise. And some newer control panels also include telemetry capabilities that can send messages, text messages to service providers and the homeowner. All of these systems require service and or maintenance contracts that include annual sampling. It is a building code requirement that there's a maintenance contract. Some systems might require media replacement every so often, and they all need to be maintained per the manufacturer requirements. All of these different types of systems and more information on their approvals can be found on our website. The webpage is called Options for On-Site Residential Wastewater Treatment Technologies, mouthful, and it's found under Industry Resources. So a little bit about maintaining your system. So there's a general misconception that maintenance is not required or necessary, but on the contrary, the building code actually outlines maintenance requirements for sewage systems. It states that they shall be maintained in accordance with how it was approved so that it operates in its intended manner, does not discharge or leak onto the ground, and that they shall be pumped when sludge and scum occupies 1/3 of the tank's working capacity. It is the responsibility of the homeowner to keep the system working properly. You want to maintain your septic system not only because it's required, but because poorly functioning on-site sewage systems properly functioning, not poorly, properly functioning on-site sewage systems can increase the value of your home, prevent costly repairs, stop raw effluent and excess nutrients from leaching into our waterways, and help prevent contamination of aquifers, which is your source of drinking water. So next we'll talk about some regular maintenance items. Systems require some regular maintenance, starting with effluent filters. Clogged effluent filters can lead to sewage backups into your home, so make sure to have your effluent filter checked and cleaned regularly. You can do it yourself using gloves and eye protection, or you can hire a company that specializes in this maintenance. If doing it yourself, you can spray it with a hose over the first chamber of your tank so that what you're washing off has a chance to be treated properly within the septic tank system. Systems require pumping, so again, at 1/3 capacity of sludge and scum, which tends to be every 3 to 5 years. That's the general recommendation. But you can have a professional sewage hauler assess your usage and help plan an effective pumping schedule with you. Make sure that you keep records. So record of where your system is, if you know, records of tank pumping, filter cleaning, inspections, alarm testing, everything. Keep all of the records that you can. And always, always, always follow the do's and don'ts of septic system care. These can be found on our website or on our YouTube channel. If you have a septic system, but you're not sure where it's located, you can look for your home's blueprint or as-built drawings as they were prepared by the contractor. Or you can search around your yard for access lids. You can try to get a copy of your septic permit from your primary authorities, but bear in mind that records of septic systems in Ontario are generally poor and may be out of date or incorrect if unpermitted construction, renovations, or bathroom additions have been done. Or you can hire a maintenance provider or private inspector to locate your system, which leads nicely into our next topic. I'll pass things over to Mike to talk about inspection.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me. As far as inspections go, there are some key times as to when you want to do when you do want to get an inspection done. Some of them are if there's going to be any kind of significant change to the occupancy of the dwelling. That's just going to mean that there's going to be increased flows to the system, and depending on the functionality of that system, that additional hydraulic load may stress the system out. When the house is being sold, so it seems to be fairly customary that when a property is changing hands, that the tank gets pumped. That's good, but a tank pump out does not constitute septic system inspection. I have this conversation quite regularly with real estate agents, where I think in the past it's been acceptable that once the tank is pumped, that's assumed that the septic system has been inspected. That's not the case. The pumper may do a visual inspection of the tank when the tank is being pumped up, but that doesn't. They don't generally look at the leaching field as well. So anyway, it's good to get a whole system evaluation at that time. If you don't have a septic permit available and you're wanting to do renovations, generally, if there's any increase in the number of water fixtures, square footage, or bedrooms of the house, that's going to require an increase in the size of the existing septic system. If your system is 20 years or older and you don't have a sense as to where it is or what level of functionality it is, then it's a good time to maybe get an inspection done. If there's been no record of maintenance, if you have electrical components, if there's a pump chamber, if you have a standard system or a conventional system, and there's a pump chamber that is pumping the effluent from the tank to the leaching field, always a good opportunity to kind of make sure that those pumps are functioning and that they have floats, functional floats, and that the panel is operational as well. Especially advanced treatment units, they need to be maintained and serviced on an annual basis. Some, depending on the make and the model, require a biannual maintenance, but generally a lot of systems that are going in the ground these days only require annual maintenance. And then if there's a history of system repairs that may be indicative of a repetitive condition that's causing the issue, causing an ongoing issue with the system, maybe time to get that checked out to remediate that. And if you have any odor issues in the yard or in the house, it's a good time to get your system inspected. Like I alluded to at the time of real estate transaction inspections, I can't stress this enough that a pump out of a tank does not constitute a full system inspection. I understand that pumpers may issue kind of a one-page checklist to say that the system's been pumped and they did a visual inspection of the septic tank. But so much of the system's performance depends on the functionality of the leaching field itself. So that's making sure that the pipes, or the lateral pipes, I should say, in the leaching field are clear of any debris, roots, sludge, but also ensuring that the receiving native soils underneath the pipes and sand and stone layer are not saturated, are not clogged with biomat, but that those systems, that those soils are still able to accept, receive, disperse, and treat that effluent coming out of those lateral pipes. That's critical. That's really important. So basic inspection is one that's generally only visual. We'll inspect the tank, can scan for obvious breakouts, and this would be walking the leaching field, testing for any soft or mushy parts in the leaching field, which may be indicative of potential outbreak. Also looking for actual outbreak of wastewater onto the surface. And usually if it's a basic inspection, it offers minimal protections to the client. So if we're looking at a more comprehensive inspection, this is something where you're going to locate all the system components. So that's the tank, potentially a pump chamber, and then of course the leaching field. Lots of situations where folks will have moved into a rural property and there weren't any records on record with the municipality, or the homeowner didn't have any records of the septic system. We saw a lot of this during COVID, during the push to get out of the city and people relocating to rural properties, where there was just no awareness about the fact that they're leaving municipal serviced properties and now onto rural properties where they effectively become their own wastewater treatment plant and drinking water plant operators, right? Locating all the systems, knowing where your system is, where your tank, where your leaching field is critical. It's really important. So then the next step would be to access and excavate all components. So that's the tank, pump chamber if required. There will be a camera inspection or potentially a sewage camera inspection of the pipes leading from the house to the tank and then from the tank to the leaching field. There will be generally a full assessment of the component sizes and the condition, so getting the size of the tank, and then getting the length of the runs of the leaching field as well, and the width and the length of the field as well, because generally the size of the tank and the size of the leaching field is dependent upon the number of water fixtures in the house, square footage of the house, and the number of bathrooms. So those three components configure a what's the term I'm looking for? Yeah, the daily design flow, but it's put into a calculation. It's laid out by the building code that then provides you with that information. The approximate cost and remediation of replacement. So that's something that can be done once the system has been assessed, once the viability of the leaching field is given some consideration, and then we can make recommendations from there. And then you always want these inspections performed by qualified septic professionals. All the staff at ESSE all have their BCIN numbers, which is their building code identification number, which means they've written the test and are essentially licensed installers of septic systems. And these also generally will come with a fairly exhaustive report, the summary of the inspection and functionality of the septic system. And then once you have that, obviously that not only can create a significant amount of peace of mind that your system is functional, but when it comes time to sell the property, you have that document that you can share with prospective buyers, that your system shows pride of ownership and that it is a solid functioning system.
All right, so we'll move on to a little bit about troubleshooting. So some common causes of failure can be hydraulic overload. So putting too much water to the system at once. Let's say you do 3 loads of laundry in a row. That's never good. Physical damage that could happen from, let's say you drive over your leaching bed and you damage the pipes. Biomat buildup happens over time. Poor design and or installation. It sadly does happen sometimes that they're not installed properly. Lack of maintenance and poor treatment are both homeowner things. You have to make sure to take care of your system properly and only put down the 3 Ps and all of that sort of stuff. So some signs of malfunction can include sewage backup in the building, sewage surfacing in the yard as pictured here, as Mike was talking about, if your yard is a little extra mushy or anything like that. Or obviously if you have odors indoor or outdoor, or your sewage system alarm is activated. Another sign of malfunction too can be if your grass is very green over where your leaching bed is, or like in lines where your pipes are. That is a good indicator that your system is in the process of failing. So some possible causes of sewage backup in the building could be roots or trees clogging the pipes. So we said earlier, there's a recommendation to have 6 meters setbacks from trees and everything, or for trees and everything. That's because the roots go large, and they can do a lot of damage to your pipes. Blockage in plumbing in the house. So somebody has flushed their Lego toy down the toilet. A damaged sewer line, excess water from leaking fixtures. So if your toilet is constantly running, or one of your sinks is leaking a little bit, you want to replace those, because it again it's just constantly putting water to the system and overloading it. A pump or a float failure. And then freezing as well. So if you are in, up north or something like that, and your ground freezes a lot easier, you want to consider some sort of heat source, probably.
Well, the only thing I was going to add there, you may maybe mention it in previous or next slide, but as far as the what they call flushable wipes, yeah, those are not, they're marketed as flushable, but and they may be flushable at a municipal context, but they're not. But as far as septic systems go, those are bad things to put down. Do not put them down your toilet. If you have a pump chamber, those can just one of those can effectively make even a grinder pump clogged, and that can cause significant issues, potential backups. But they don't break down in the tank, and they can then further complicate issues for your pumper and their pumps as well. So not to say don't buy them, but just don't flush them. Yeah.
All right, so sewage backup in the building, there's some concerns and what to do about it. So if sewage is backing up, you can be exposed to dangerous gases, electrical hazards, pathogens, and viruses. There could be damage to your furnace, walls, insulation, and all of that, which can cause mold and other organism production. So what you can do if this happens, basically you want to try and circulate air, but stay a safe distance away from potential gases. Stop using anything that will put water to your system and call a professional. At the end of it all, you'll want to make sure to do a thorough clean and disinfection of the space as well. So some possible causes of sewage surfacing in the yard can be excess water entering the system, either from leaky fixtures or excessive water use, as we mentioned. It can also be caused by system blockages, washable wipes, for example, non-degradable materials in the system or solids in the treatment field. Improper treatment field design can lead to sewage surfacing or ponding in the yard as well. If it's located over a high water table, it can saturate soil and cause ponding on the surface as well. Also, if the soil is unsuitable, or like if there's a heavy clay, it can lead to ponding. The improper design or installation of the system can lead to these problems as well. So some of the concerns of sewage surfacing in the yard, other than the obvious failure of the system, can include, again, exposing yourself to pathogens and viruses. It attracts pests and pets. It's bad for pets, obviously. Contamination of soil and groundwater, and of course, exposure to dangerous gases as well. So if you notice ponding, you'll want to block off access to that area, reduce your water usage, and call a professional such as Mike to have a look at what's going on in your system. If you have an advanced treatment unit that has an alarm, it may activate if the electrical breaker for the effluent pump is tripped, or if the pump is unplugged, or fails. Any other?
Yeah, the panels are quite sophisticated these days, and like you mentioned, they can notify service providers and homeowners of the issues. There are some panels that are somewhat user-friendly. We have situations where we'll have a homeowner will call into us and we can provide them with some guidance over the phone as to what to do as far as silencing an alarm or issues around any notifications for air pump failure or anything along those lines. But generally, there should be information contained on the panel itself for who to call. As far as dealing with any electrical issues, again, call a professional. If you're in doubt, please do call a professional. So for troubleshooting as to what could be possibly wrong, I would say contact a service professional first, and then potentially get the input from us, and then potentially they have to call electrician.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot in a short period of time here, so we're going to take a moment to direct you to some really great resources that you can review. Today's information as well as much more knowledge about septic systems. So first off, our EWSSE Onsite Technical Committee volunteers have written peer-reviewed guidance documents on many topics for which our members have requested clarity. The list shown on the screen here are some of the ones that homeowners might find valuable as well. These all can be found on our website under the Industry Resources page. Our Communications Committee has developed 2 videos specific to the septic user audience. Our Septics 101 video goes into detail about the components involved in a septic system, the function of each one, and how they work together. And then our Do's and Don'ts video dives a little deeper into what to do and what not to do to maintain proper health of your system and the reasons why. And the third video I have listed here is more directed toward industry professionals, but we encourage homeowners to watch it as it provides a better understanding of what goes into installing your septic system. Recently, we developed a short tutorial video in partnership with one of our members that shows you how to test different toilet paper brands at home to see how well they break down after flushing. Not all toilet paper is made the same. Some of them are very thick and cushy, and those ones are likely not to break down into small flakes, which can cause blockages in your system, which can lead to backups, which can lead to expensive repairs, and so on and so forth. So it's actually a pretty interesting video. It's on our YouTube channel as well. If you're looking for a professional, a pumper, repair, placement, inspection, our Find a Professional directory is the place to go. Our members are always keeping up with the industry best practices, updates that are current and relevant, and we encourage you to use our members, such as ESSE, and ask those who aren't members why they aren't. We also have some tangible resources, including a homeowner brochure that covers all the basics a system owner needs to know. And the other is a one-pager that we've basically taken our most visited web pages and our video resources, anything else that we have for homeowners, put it all into one sheet of paper that you can scan it to go be taken to the larger resource, depending on the topic. We currently have a task group that's creating more of these one-pagers based on certain scenarios. So, for example, if you are doing a new rural home build, then we're going to have a one-pager with links to everything you need to know if you're building a new home and how that relates to your septic system. Or if you are an existing, looking to purchase an existing home with a septic system, for example, we would have all the links to resources about what you should know for that. So they'll be out soon and posted on our website as well. This Septic Smart booklet is a fantastic resource that was developed for the ministry, technically reviewed by various industry stakeholders, including UA, and it explains practically everything you need to know, including how your system works and how to keep it working properly. And if you're wondering a bit more about advanced treatment units, pages 14 to 23 in this Septic Smart booklet talk about them in great detail. So in conclusion, on-site sewage systems are a critical piece of rural infrastructure that require proper design, installation, operation, maintenance, and management. If you have any questions about how to care for your system, please contact UA or ESSE and we will be happy to help and we can answer some questions.
Great, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I just wanted to point out that one of my colleagues is placing a lot of the links that you mentioned in the chat there, so you can access those, but I'm sure they're easy to find from the main website if you don't catch those in time. So what we would like to do now is go over some of the questions that were submitted by the registrants of the workshop. So we went through them and collected some of the common ones. So you should be seeing that slide on the screen now. So the first question that we were asked is, what are the dangers of not inspecting your septic system quite as frequently as you should if you're trying to save money? And I believe you basically went over this, but maybe you could summarize it just with a couple points. What are the real main dangers of doing this?
Sure. No, if you have a standard system, I mean, there's not much to inspect, as far as standard systems go, but as of, I think, 2016, all standard systems require to have an effluent filter at the outlet of the septic tank. So I would inspect and clean those twice annually. And that's critical because that effluent filter prevents solids from leaving the septic tank and potentially clogging your leaching field. The expense of a system, really the majority of the expense is in the leaching field. So that's something that you want to take seriously and you want to protect, hence the effluent filter. So twice annually for the cleaning of the effluent filter. That's probably one of the best things that you can do. The tank is the tank. I would maybe make sure if you have green plastic risers on top of your septic tanks, just to make sure that those are in good in good shape. You know, we see a lot of the situations where they've been run over by lawnmowers and that they're no longer watertight, but make sure that those green plastic lids, if you do have them, are watertight and sound, and that they're securely screwed down into the risers themselves. Make sure those lids are secure and tight. Maybe it's worthwhile walking your leaching field once or twice a year to make sure that you're not experiencing any breakouts or any potential signs of failure. We usually say that a septic system will have a lifespan of 35 to 40 years, depending on usage. But if you know you have a system that is of that vintage, then it's maybe time to start thinking about budgeting for system replacement. The failure of a system almost is always related to the receiving soils under your leaching field. They just get saturated over time. Potentially maybe not even with biomass, but they just get hydraulically overloaded and can no longer accept water. So the leaching field is something good to review and to walk over.
I'd just add to, like, the most important thing is proper care and maintenance, right? So you don't need to get your system inspected annually or anything unless you think there's a reason to. Like, all the things Mike just mentioned are some things you can do, but the thing that's going to cost you money in the end is not properly caring for it. So yeah, don't use flushable wipes, follow the do's and don'ts, things like that.
Exactly. And that's kind of a nice segue. You did mention that expected lifespan is about 35 to 40 years. So when that 40 years is up, what is involved in replacing an old septic tank, and what are the options?
So first and foremost, a permit is required to replace the septic tank in Ontario. We would recommend hiring a professional to help with this process, as there's several options available depending on the situation. For example, if the tank is fine, but it's undersized, you can connect another tank in series. And as for the type of tank, there are numerous options available, but the two most popular are concrete or plastic. If you're looking to decommission the existing tank, we have a resource available on our website that I will actually pop into the chat here, so you guys don't have to go looking for it.
Okay. Can you drive a riding lawnmower or a small Kubota tractor over the septic bed?
Yeah, I would say, a lawnmower is fine. You need to cut the grass. You should only have grass over top of your leaching field. There shouldn't be anything else on top of your leaching field. Just grow grass on it. That's all. That's all you do. I wouldn't recommend gardens or anything. Just grow grass on it, and that's really all that should be on top of the leaching field. Small Kubota tractor. I'm not sure how big of a tractor we're talking about, but we generally recommend any small to medium to large heavy equipment not to go over the leaching field. I would say about the lawnmower is probably about as much as you like. A riding lawnmower or a riding tractor is about as big as you want to get with that. Winter time, try to avoid snow wheels going over your leaching field, and driving vehicles over it. Yeah, please avoid those.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do I need to? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
One other thing, it's recommended to switch up your cutting patterns too. Like if you do have a bit heavier, I did look up a small Kubota tractor, and it is a little bit bigger than your average riding mower, but like if that's what you have, that's what you want to use, then switch up your cutting pattern. So don't go the same way every time, because that will cause compaction over time. So you can just kind of switch up the way you're doing it, and that should help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. So what do I need to know about building risers for your septic?
So there are requirements in the Ontario Building Code, as well as the CSA B66. What does CSA stand for?
Standards Association.
Canadian Standards Association, thank you. For risers on septic tanks. So you should talk to a tank manufacturer or supplier to get more details about those requirements. You don't need a permit for it. However, you should check with your local approval authority first to make sure. And again, we would recommend that you hire a professional to complete the installation of risers and ensure that it's done correctly. Another thing I'd like to note actually is the CSA B66 has a regulation or mandate or whatever now that you have to have safety screens in your risers, and that prevents animals, and humans from falling into the tank. So make sure you have those yellow safety screens.
The only other thing I would touch on here, because the question is worded, when I see that word building risers, when we've done inspections, I've seen all kinds of situations where people have come up with their own homemade riser, access riser to the tank. Generally, they're well-intentioned, but yeah, they're made with pressure-treated wood or other types of material. Please don't get creative because it generally turns into a headache for pumpers and inspectors like ourselves. Please go with the green plastic risers that you can get from concrete precasters or anywhere else. I've seen them available at hardware stores as well. But to Kelly's point, it's very important to have a professional install them because there are some things about the installation that need to be done properly to ensure that they're watertight and to make sure that they're safe. So please don't construct your own. Purchase some, or you can contact, like I said, precasters. They'll have those and have them installed by a professional.
Goes back to there's requirements in the Ontario Building Code. If you build them yourself, then you are not in compliance, simply put.
Mm-hmm. Are low flush toilets an issue for septic tanks?
I think there's two types of thoughts here. It's good from a water conservation perspective to not be using as much water. We also say at the same time that you don't want to necessarily hydraulically overload your leaching field. But at the same time, there are some thoughts about the fact that having water flowing through your system at reasonable amounts is not necessarily a bad thing. I've heard, issues around low flow toilets from a municipal perspective that's saying that there's potentially not enough water flowing through the system to carry solids. I can't necessarily comment on that. But from our perspective, generally having water flow through the system is not necessarily a bad thing. But again, making sure that it's a reasonable amount, that you're not using multiple appliances at the same time and hydraulically overloading your bed. I would say from my perspective, I'm fairly silent on low flow toilets, aside from the fact that they're good for water conservation purposes.
I think like for residential use, it's not much of an issue, right? Because you are going to be using your dishwasher and your laundry machine and still pushing water through the system. But in a commercial application like an RV park, for example, if this concern becomes around like dilution of the water and how high strength it is. So if you're in a commercial situation where you're reducing the amount of water going into the system, you might be increasing the strength of it, and that's where it becomes a concern. But for residential, it's like if you want to have low flush toilets, all the power to you.
I would say another thing I would say about that is that septic systems are by definition or by the basis of them is that they're biological systems. There's anaerobic bacterial in their septic tank that's breaking down solids. And there's other bacteria in the soils in the leaching field that are also working to polish that wastewater before it returns back to the groundwater. So making sure that there are optimal conditions or environments for those different types of bacteria to do their jobs is important. And I think that you want to try and find a balance of water flow into the system to make sure that there is that type of environment for those bacteria to operate properly.
Okay. The next question is, what should I know about my septic system if I'm converting my detached shop into a residential unit? And it's pretty common these days, I think, for people to be looking for extra income, and they might be putting attachments onto their homes and that sort of thing to get renters in. So what should they be concerned about when it comes to their septic?
So adding a residential unit will increase the total daily design flow for your property. So a detailed design calculation should be done to determine capacities and requirements. Essentially, like you need to know exactly what you have and what your system can handle currently. And then most municipalities will require a septic assessment to be conducted by a licensed engineer before they will issue a building permit for an addition or change of use. So you, again, you could use our Find a Professional directory to consult, to find an engineering consultant to help with that.
Yeah, generally you want to do a capacity assessment of your existing system. There may be a chance that your system is able to accept an additional flow. More than likely not, because generally the system is designed for the existing building or the existing dwelling. But any increases, like I said, bedrooms, square footage, water fixtures will trigger a review of the system and potentially an increase in size. If it's a separate building apart from the house, if it's like a garage or something, there may be situations where they may require a separate standalone septic system servicing that building as well. So things to think about when you're designing and dreaming and planning for any kind of renovations or additions.
This was an interesting one. Can you combine a septic bed with an in-ground sourced heat pump system since they both require digging and burying?
So essentially, this is a complicated question that a professional should be consulted on. I would keep in mind that if you ever had to perform any kind of maintenance on the in-ground heat pump system, you would not want to have to dig through the leaching bed in order to reach the heating system beneath. Now, instead of one problem, you have two.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Well, my instinct would be to say no, don't do that. Yeah, don't above or below the leaching field. Don't do that.
All right. Are septic bed system additives like Septobac beneficial for septic systems that are used on a regular basis or on seasonal cottages?
So I'll take it first. Okay, so there is no established standard testing method for these products, and therefore no scientific proof that additives benefit or harm, for that matter, your system. So our on-site technical committee has developed a resource on our website that's intended to provide clarity on this topic. I would recommend reading that webpage, as the answer is not a simple yes or no. So again, I'm going to throw that link in the chat.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to ask my colleague Thomas to come on and see if he has any questions from the chat. I believe we might have a few of them.
Yeah.
Then I'll have a few slides afterwards, and then we're all done.
The chat has, we have quite a few questions that I think will be beneficial for everyone. So the first one was, do all residential septic systems, including older systems, have an effluent filter? And I think you guys said that it was 2016 where they were considered mandatory. So is it possible to find them in older systems than that?
Generally, no. Older systems won't have. They will have what they call like a baffle around the outlet and around the inlet and the outlet pipes of the tank. But the effluent filters have much finer slots that will capture the solids. Whereas the old traditional, if you look inside your tank, there's probably a concrete baffle that the intent was that baffle would stop the solids, but you still have lots of suspended solids in that wastewater that could get out to your leaching field. So a lot of older tanks that were installed and built prior to 2016 will not have effluent filters. You can have effluent filters retrofitted into your tank. So you can benefit from the effluent filter. That's something that would only you want to be done by a professional. That requires knocking off that concrete baffle and replacing it with a PVC piping and the effluent filter itself. So that can be done. And it's probably one of the most effective retrofits and improvements that you can do to a standard system. So highly recommend it, but have it done by a professional. Not all tanks will have them, especially older tanks will not, but every new tank that's going in the ground since 2016 should have effluent filters on them.
Okay, thank you. The next one was a personal question, in the sense that this homeowner has owned their house for 5 years and they estimate that their septic system is 35 years old. and they are wondering if they should have a professional inspection performed on the system and what the cost of that inspection would run.
Yeah, if you've got a system that's nearing the end of its functional life, then I would definitely, for your own peace of mind, to have it inspected. Prices may range depending on the depth and the comprehensiveness of the inspection. Yeah, inspections generally could. It's hard to provide a range. I'm not sure what would be out there. I would suggest call around to a number of service providers to get quotes. Yeah, anticipate spending several $100s upwards to $1,000 for a proper inspection. It's like you said, that adage is you get what you pay for. So do your research and hire only if you can find somebody who has a BCIN number, that's preferable. And somebody who has a long history in the industry and of doing these types of inspections as well. Like qualifications are good, but experience is there's no substitution for experience.
Thank you. And the second question from this attendee also says, how do you access the effluent system? And I wonder if they are wondering how to access either the tank or potentially the effluent filter, should you have one.
So here's where those green plastic risers come in. So they're not only they make it more, they obviously make the tank more accessible, but they also make pump outs and servicing of your tank and of your system much more easier, and it's more likely that kind of work will get done if you can access the tank. So the green risers, you may see them driving through the country. You'll see the green plastic lids on somebody's lawn. Those lids can easily be unscrewed and removed, and then that's how you can access the effluent filter. This is something that homeowners can potentially do on their own. It's maybe an unpleasant job that maybe not a lot of people want to do, but technically you can access that effluent filter. Generally, when we install an effluent or retrofit an effluent filter, we're installing those plastic risers as well to make sure that effluent filter is always accessible. So that's how you access that. The outlet side of the tank through the riser of the tank, and you can reach down in and pull that out, and do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The next question is there a concern with water softeners on a septic system?
So at UO we say don't discharge a water softener into your septic system unless it's been designed for it. It can do a lot of damage to, if you have a concrete tank, for example, it can do a lot of damage to that. But also, even if your system is designed for it and you are discharging, make sure that you work with the provider of the water softener to make sure that your settings are properly done for the hardness of your water. So you don't want it to be flushing too often or anything like that. So not recommended unless it's designed for it, which again, we have a resource for that. I'll see if I can find it quickly.
Yeah, it's just another additional hydraulic load to the septic system that it's not the discharge from the backwash of a water softener does not need to be treated through the septic system. You can discharge that into a soak-away pit or onto the ground if you have a suitable and acceptable place to do that. We generally recommend that if we're on an inspection, we have an older system, but it has a water softener connected to it. The first thing that they should do to extend the life of their system is to replumb the water softener so it's not being discharged into leaching or into the septic system. But as Kelly mentioned, there's technology that they can kind of manage and control the amount of backflow going into the system. But if you're having one installed, good opportunity not to have it connected to your septic system.
Okay, thank you. There was another question about the risers and if there's an advantage to the risers versus the buried access ports.
Yeah, again, it's just ease of accessibility for pump outs and maintenance of the tank. Yeah, it just makes things, I know there's issues around the aesthetics of having these green lids on your lawn. But as far as, like we've been saying the whole presentation, is that proper maintenance and servicing of the system is critical. Having those green risers makes it easier to get that done. A number of inspections, we could be digging 2-3 feet down to access the tank. That's a lot of work for your service providers and for pumpers. Yeah, it's just ease of access, and makes it plausible, more plausible that the system's going to get pumped and that it's going to get serviced and maintained. So huge benefits from our perspective anyway for those green risers.
Okay, thank you. The next one, I believe you already answered the first one, but I'll just bring it up quickly. Should you retrofit a filter on an older tank? I believe you said that's one of the most cost-effective things you can do for your septic system.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So when that effluent filter goes in, so will those green risers, so we can get access to that effluent filter to clean that. So
Okay.
yeah, huge benefits for that. Yep.
Okay, huge benefits. Very good. This attendee is asking whether or not they have a 30-year-old system. They know they need to replace it soon because it's getting there, but right now they don't have any issues with it. And they have a lot of trees and creeping vines growing all over the bed. So they're wondering if they should clear the area or just let it be, since they know they have to replace it eventually and they don't want to, I guess, disturb it and create an issue, right? If it's functioning as it should be right now.
Sure. Yeah. If there are trees on top of the leaching field, chances are there's very good chances that your pipes, and if it's a 30-year-old system, there's a very excellent chance that those pipes are filled with roots at this point. If they're sizable trees, I've seen pipes clogged with raspberry roots, like plants and other types of vegetation, not trees. But trees are quite prolific, and their root systems can extend quite a distance. There's specific types and species of trees that are exceptionally thirsty and have very extensive root systems. So you want to be careful that any types of those types of trees are not anywhere near your leaching field. But if there are trees on top of your leaching field, that's a huge source of nutrient-rich water for those roots, and there's a good chance that the system has been infiltrated and potentially clogged by those roots. So I guess start budgeting for a system replacement, clearing the trees, and I mean, if you can't clear the trees, at least clear what you can of the smaller vegetation. It's hard to say without seeing what the situation is, how much damage or how much cloggage there is, unless you do an inspection. But if you're getting to that point, then it might be for your own peace of mind to get a sense as to how much time you have before you replace the system or the level of its current functionality. Then I would strongly suggest getting an inspection done.
To add to that, just because it appears to the naked eye that the system is functioning properly doesn't mean that it is, right? So like there could be problems happening that you don't know about. So if there is a bunch of trees and everything around, and most likely the pipes are clogged and broken and whatever else, then it's very possible that it's not functioning the way it should. So I would definitely recommend getting an inspection to first of all make sure that it is functioning, and B, yes, start planning ahead for getting a good timeline of when you might need replacement. But also, if you have to replace your leaching field, it's not very often that you replace it on in the same spot, right? Unless the soils are okay. So you'd probably be moving the leaching field anyways. So yeah, I don't know where I was going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what was that? I had a point I was going to say as well about that. But yeah, as far as there could be issues because everything's underground, right? So there could be unforeseen issues that you're experiencing. The function and the point of a leaching field is not only dispersal and getting rid that water back into the ground, but it's also treatment, right? So that's where the treatment is taking place. If you don't have a proper functioning field, the water may be finding its way somewhere, but you can guarantee the water is not being treated properly. So, we've seen a number of situations where the water is finding its way into the ground somewhere as a result of clogged pipes or a malfunctioning leaching field. And from the homeowner's perspective, everything's fine because the water is going away. It's not coming up onto the surface or anything, but there's not proper treatment. And that's one of the key things about the leaching field, is that it's designed in a way that you have the water being dispersed evenly over a prescribed area or surface area, so those soils can accept but then also treat that effluent. So anyway, just something to think about as far as leaching fields go.
Yeah.
All right. So we actually have good questions that are continuing to roll in, but we want to respect everybody's time. So maybe, Thomas, you could pick one or two really good or common ones, and then
Yeah.
and then the rest we can maybe email the presenters, and we can get back to those people. So if you had a question, maybe you can share your email, reach out to us, and then we'll get back to you for sure.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because I see now that as we have the experts here and questions keep coming in, they would just go forever. So there was a question about specific to MVCA about a recommendation to overcome fear of inspections, because my assumption is that people don't want to have inspections because they're afraid it's going to come with a cost of having to replace their system. So is there a recommendation to overcome that fear, right?
I don't know, how do you overcome it?
What some of the things that we think about sometimes is, so if you're living in a city or you're living in a town, you're paying your municipality on a monthly basis for drinking water services and for wastewater from your property. And you're paying however much you pay a month for both of those services. If you are in a rural property, then it's a good suggestion or a good idea to every month, just like paying your water or your wastewater bill if you lived in a city, just to be socking away some money and to save for that inevitability that one day you may have to replace your septic system. So incorporate that into your monthly budget however you can, but that the responsibility is on you. So as a rural property owner, you are your own drinking water treatment operator, and you operate your own wastewater treatment plant. So along with that responsibility goes the costs. So budget accordingly, and know that at the end of the day, there's going to be major, potentially major replacements, repairs, or work that needs to be done on your system, and that you are solely responsible.
And further to that, like keeping in mind that if your system isn't functioning properly, like that's your drinking water, that's your neighbor's drinking water, that's the water you're using to water your garden. Like sewage is a health hazard, and you don't want to be the one that's responsible for causing illnesses and such. So just bear that in mind.
Shared responsibility.
Thank you. I believe, as my colleague said, we will collect all the remaining questions and get them answered. So Jason, I'll leave it to you to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. There's just a few more slides here. So at this point, we should have a little quiz coming up on the screen. We want to hear from you and hear about how you thought about the presentation. It really helps us move forward and improve these every single time. We definitely want to, on behalf of all the hosts and the attendees, we want to thank Kelly and Mike for such great presentations, lots of information. Yeah, we want to be sure that that poll comes up, and we're going to give everybody maybe a minute to answer those questions. If it's not popping up, it might be because our host, Marika, is actually having technical difficulties right now. So I'm not sure if that's popping up on your end, but hopefully it is.
Unfortunately, Jason, I don't think we'll be able to do the polls this week.
All right. Okay, well, that's perfectly fine. We will assume that everybody loved it and they went perfectly fine. So we do also want to say that we do have another webinar coming up, the last webinar of the year, Karst Geology and Source Water Protection, which is happening on November 27th around the same time. And if you missed one of the webinars, or you came to this one late or something, you can go to our YouTube page here, and then there'll be all of the webinars that we've done in the past, including Septic Systems 101, harmful algal blooms, history of source water protection, all sorts of great information. This video will be put up there as well shortly. And if someone can place that in the chat there, then you can go and find that link. And then if there is any reason that you want to reach out to any of the hosts, again, myself from Cataract Lake Conservation, Trent from Lower Trent Conservation, Thomas from Niagara Peninsula Conservation, Marika at Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, and Natasha from Quinte Conservation. So at that point, that concludes the presentation. And we want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. And again, thank you to our presenters. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.